Good morning. Welcome to Christmas church time. Yeah. Hey, how many of you feel like ready for Christmas? Okay. No one in this wing. I can respect that. That's okay. I don't know if I'm ready this week. Kind of a weird week for me in multiple ways. My baby sister had her first kid, so that's super exciting. But like a good baby sister, she doesn't communicate a lot. And so like all week, I'm like, I want all the details. Give me all of them. And then late last night, I got all of them. I'm like, I don't know if I want all of them, but man, it's so cool. So cool. Love. And actually for the first time this morning, as a man, maybe you'll appreciate this. Ladies, I'm sure you'll be like, what in the world? Like for the first time this morning, I thought, man, Christmas, that first one might have been really hard. Like giving birth to a baby might have been really, really hard. So, man, Jesus, Mary, way to go. This week started out for me on Monday, my day off. Started out with a lot of ambition. I like to make to-do lists, and so I made a long to-do list, probably 15 or 16 things on my list, which I just love. I love writing it out because I love crossing it off and feeling accomplished, even if it's small things, but I write it all out. And the first thing on my list was fix the upstairs shower. And if you live in an older home like I do, there's when it comes to fixing plumbing issues, there's multiple different ways that this can go. For the last few weeks, apparently we don't have hot water in the upstairs shower, so all the kids are showering downstairs. And in an older home, it can go like this when it comes to a plumbing issue. Number one, option A is like, it's a one Home Depot visit, $17.30. Right? YouTube first, but then it's like it's not a big deal. The other option is, no, this can be like 3 Home Depot trips, $500, and no water for who knows how long. Or the third option, you call a plumber, and it's just who knows how expensive. Well, I always go for option number one of trying to figure it out myself. And I thought I was going strong because I got a new cartridge, put it in the shower. One visit, $17. Half hour later, I'm feeling pretty good. Everything's looking good. And then I turn the shower on, and there's still no hot water. Dang. Okay. So 7 hours later, I'm still trying to figure out this problem. A lot of YouTubes later, a lot of frustration. And at the end of the day, praise God, the water is on. However, I didn't fix the problem. And I actually kind of made it a little bit worse because now all week we had neither hot water nor cold water. We had lukewarm water, everything mixed together because of one little piece this big in my shower upstairs, which meant all week we were taking lukewarm showers. Now, if you have had to take lukewarm showers, I know, first world problems, you're like, come on, Pastor, whatever. They're not that fun. You don't look forward to a lukewarm shower. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And I'm a shower guy. I shower twice a day, most days, morning, night. All week's been a little bit on the rough side. You get in there, you get it done. You're just like, I got to do what I got to do. But there's just not a lot of lingering. There's not a lot of like, I'm enjoying this. It's just like, okay, we have to do it. And it fluctuates from like lukewarm to cool to lukewarm. And it's just not that fun. And naturally, because I'm a pastor, all week, what have I been thinking about? Revelation chapter 3, verse 13. Chapter 3, verse 15. Right? Jesus is writing through John. He's speaking to a bunch of churches. And to one of the churches, he goes, hey, you guys are lukewarm. And this whole idea like just kept coming over and over and over all week while I'm loofahing up and all the things. Yes, I use the loofah. And just this idea that, man, you know what I really don't want? I don't want a lukewarm faith. Because a lukewarm faith is like, I'm just showing up. And I'm just doing what I have to do because I have to do it. Right? I got to take a shower. There's nothing enjoyable about it. It's just like lukewarm faith is, I'm just showing up to church because it's the right thing to do. And there's a season for that. But I don't want that season to go for too long. I don't want the season to be like, well, I'm just doing the things just because I should be doing them. And there's just not a lot of joy. There's not a lot of deep passion that's driving the things that I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing it. And Jesus writes to this church to say, no, I have something so much better for you than a lukewarm faith. Like, I don't want you to go through life just kind of like, half in, half out. Like, are you enjoying this? He's like, I got something so much better for you today. Like, I have a full life of engagement. Like, I want you to fully enjoy the gift of faith that I've given you. And so as we're kind of exploring into this Christmas season, I want us today, as we think about faith, and as we think about life, I know some of us are in the season where it's just kind of lukewarm. It's just like, I don't know. It's another Christmas. It's like, yeah, like they happen every year. I want us to just take a minute over the next couple weeks and just to recognize, like, no, like Jesus does have something for us. I want us to walk out of here today. I really have one goal. I want us to walk out of here today knowing, like, no, like I'm being pursued by God today. Like he truly wants me to experience him. And some of us, here's the truth, we're in kind of three different places, and we're gonna see this throughout the story today. Is like some of us are in that lukewarm season where we're going through the motions, and it's just like, man, it just feels kind of meh. It's there, my faith's kind of there, and God's like, no, I want you to experience me this season. All right, for some of us, we are far from God. Like some of us, like we're at church for the first time in maybe a couple years, or for the first time ever. And we're pretty distant, if we're honest, and it's a cold shower moment. And God's like, no, I'm really after you. I want you to experience my love. I have something for you. Right? And for some of us, we're doing great. Like actually, life's pretty good. Like our faith's going strong, and it's in those seasons where God's like, and I have even more for you. Like I don't just want you to live off of like what happened yesterday or what happened a couple of Christmases ago. Like I actually have more for you. And so whether you're like, you came this morning and you're feeling just kind of the drolls of kind of the average, mundane, lukewarm, or whether you're like super far from the Lord and it's cold, or whether you're like, man, this is fresh, like God really has something for us. And I really hope that we walk out of here with just a fresh take of, man, God is for me. He loves me. Like he doesn't want me to stay where I am today. He's encouraging me to take a step somewhere, and that step's going to be different for each of us, right? But he has something for us. And so that's kind of our hope, and we see like God meets so many different people in so many different places. And as we look at this Christmas story, you know, the Christmas story, it starts in the very beginning of the book of Matthew. It's the New Testament. It's the beginning of where we learn about Jesus kind of for the first time by name. And it starts with a genealogy, which is always kind of interesting. You're reading the Bible, and if you don't know the story at all and you don't know any of the background, you read a list of names, and it can be confusing and not super helpful. But if you get to know a little bit of context and a little bit of these names, all of a sudden it comes to life. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, look what God's done. Like, look at thousands of years where God has taken someone who is super far from him, and he's going like, no, I have something for you. Where God has taken someone who's kind of living in that lukewarm kind of culture, and he's like, no, like I have something for you too. And he's taking people who are doing great, and he's like, no, I have even more for you. And we see this, through all these different stories. We see it in so many different ways, and through so many different types of people. Right? That's what's so cool about these genealogies. If you were to kind of follow through, you're like, okay, there's men here, there's also women, right? A lot of genealogies don't have women historically in this time period, but Christ is like, no, like this matters. Right? There's young people and there's old people in this story. Right? In fact, today we're going to look at a story that's primarily about a girl who we learned about her at like 15 or 16, and we're not talking about Mary. Right? We see like convicted felons, we see abusers, we see victims. Right? We see all kinds of different people. We see people who we would consider absolute failures. We see people who are like significant heroes. Like in this mix of family line that somehow leads all the way to Jesus, we see God's reaching all kinds of different people. So there's really no excuse for us to feel like maybe God doesn't see me or doesn't care about me today. Like God sees all these people in this way, and it's pretty sweet when you take the time to look at each one of them. As we've been kind of doing, kind of like, it might be hard to follow, but we are following the women in the genealogy, and there's 5 of them. We've looked at 2 stories so far, and yes, they're crazy stories. Sorry, Ron and JJ. Like, who does that for Christmas? You're welcome. Next week I have Bathsheba, so we're jumping in all of it. But these stories they've been tough, but they've also been really sweet. Like, and the really sweet thing often comes later, right? It comes like towards the end where you go, wow, like, look at the redemption of Rahab. Like, wow, look at her son and look at the family that God brought to her out of a really hard season. And so today we get another story of another young woman who this time her story is not so crazy as it is just like, wow, she was far from God and God sees her in her far off distance. She was a complete outsider, a complete stranger to faith. And God's like, no, I have something for you too. And we get another happy ever after in a way. And so we're going to kind of just walk through that, looking at the broad story, because the book of Ruth, unlike some of these other women, it's a much longer story. So, I'm already multiple minutes in, and we haven't even gotten into Ruth yet, and I'm going to keep going for a while without actually getting into Ruth. But there's a lot to this story. It's 4 chapters long, but I'm going to try my best to summarize a bit of some of these major things that are happening in the life of Ruth. But more than just Ruth, we're gonna look at Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz. Again, we're gonna look at someone who's kind of lukewarm. We're gonna look at Ruth, who is far off, and we're gonna look at Boaz, who is right there with the Lord, because God has something for each one of them in this story. And so let's jump open the text. Let's go Ruth chapter 1. I'm sorry, I don't have the page number in front of me. If you have a church Bible, maybe yell it out. But if you would you stand with me? This is Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. We're gonna read just the first 5 verses. I'm gonna read it out loud. When I'm done, to honor God's word, to set it apart as distinct from anything that I'm trying to do, I say, this is the word of the Lord, and we respond by saying, thanks be to God. Thank you that we have something to stand on. So here we go. This is Ruth chapter 1, starting in verse 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other, Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You can grab a seat. Naturally, any good Christmas story starts like this. 2:22. Thank you, Andy, for the second assist of the morning. That's good. Immediately, we see 2 problems going on. We see, first of all, that this is written during the time period of the Judges, which this is a really, really dark time in Israel's history. It's a time where, as a parent or grandparent, I think it should resonate with you that this is a painful time, because 2 generations after God frees an entire nation from 400 years of slavery under Moses, the people just go like, nah. Your God did some great things for you over here, but I'm just going to live my life over here, and I'm not really going to pay attention to anything that happened. And we see this historically, generationally throughout Scripture, like more often than we want to see, right? Like we see more often than we want to see one generation who praises God, and then the next is just like, no, that's not really my thing. And we see this throughout this time period of the Judges where it goes Moses, then Joshua, and then right after Joshua, the very next generation, they completely turn their back on the Lord. Right, so I want you to just follow along. I'm gonna read from Judges chapter 2, and I'm gonna skip a few verses, but I want to set the tone for the story of Ruth, because this is kind of the moment that it is in. Again, 2 generations after Israel is freed from 400 years of slavery in Egypt. It says, and Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord, or the work that he had done in Israel. Right? So think grandparent, think parent. This is your kid walking away, crazy painful. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods, and among the other gods of the peoples who were around them, and they bowed down to them. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he gave them over to the plunderers who plundered them, and he sold them into the hand of the surrounding enemies so that they could no longer withstand their enemies. And the next verse says, and they were in terrible distress. Verse 16 says, then the Lord raised up judges. So he's raising up good leaders in the midst of a terrible season who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Yet, classic, they did not listen to their leaders. They didn't listen to their judges. Right? Whenever the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge, and he saved them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. But whenever the judge died, they turned back and were more corrupt than their fathers, going after other gods, serving them, bowing down to them. They did not drop any of their practices or their stubborn ways. Now, we might see this and we might feel pretty removed, right? We might think, well, I don't have an Asherah pole in my living room, and I'm not, sacrificing my firstborn child to Molech. Like, that's not really me. But we can give up the God of our fathers if we simply say, nah, I'm just going to kick back and not really pay attention. Right? I'm gonna pursue my weekend as my God. I'm gonna pursue my career as my God. I'm gonna pursue my kids' sports as my God. I'm gonna pursue my health as my God. We have all kinds of Asherah poles. Right? And so we see this nation, they're going like, nope, I'm chasing all kinds of things. And God keeps over and over and over saying, no, like I've got something better. Like, I have something better for you. Stop chasing this. I have something better. And for 400 years, this nation goes through this period that we call the Judges, and it's a very dark time. We know from Ruth chapter 1 that this was happening, this story of Ruth was happening during the time of the Judges. On top of that, they're in famine. Right? Famine's hard for us to imagine here in the Northwest. Right? Sometimes I think we want drought. We're like, please, Lord. But imagine like Winco is closed. Right? Imagine Trader Joe's boarded up. Right? Costco is not a thing. Like, imagine the Willamette River is completely bone dry. You turn on your sink and nothing's coming out. Right? Your little Victory Garden, it's not a thing right now. Right? Like, I've been to the Middle East. Like, I've seen scorched earth. Like, this is scorched earth. They're living in this. Right? And we have some inclination from previous verses, like Deuteronomy chapter 11, where God says, hey, if you pursue me and follow me, there will never be a lack of rain. Right? So the natural consequence is God saying, oh, you haven't done that? Let me pull back a little rain for a season and see like where your heart and affections are. Right? And so they're living in this. It's a horrible time. It's a horrible season. And here's the crazy thing. You take this family who's in the middle of this, and we don't know their level of participation. We don't know what this family's doing. But we know, like, at a bare minimum, they are living under the consequences of other people's sin. Right? Now, they may be participating in this, but they are living in the reality of other people's poor decisions, right? Because, like, people have not been following the Lord like they should. Their leaders are not great. And so God's pulling back from this nation, pulling back from the general provision that he normally gives, and they're living in this. Now, that's a hard spot to be in, right? It's hard when your life is receiving consequences because of other people's behavior, right? Most of us would way rather have like a punishment like for us because of something that we've done, and then at least we can own it, right? You ever been in a season where someone else did something really dumb and you're paying for it, right? If you have kids, if you have parents, how about if you're married to someone, you're dating someone, right? How about if you live in a country with leadership above you? Right? So here's this family, they're living in this time where people above them are making choices that are dramatically affecting them, and it's hard. Right? You've been in that spot? You've been in that spot where, man, maybe your spouse has an addiction, and you're trying to deal with it, but it's not your addiction, but it's massively impacting you. Like, how do you respond to this? Maybe you've got a kid that you're just trying to figure out, like, man, like, they are not on a good path for them or for our family, and it's impacting everyone around them. Like, how do I respond to this? Here's this family. They're in a situation where they're being highly impacted because of things that were not necessarily their fault. I think it's in those seasons where it's extra hard to be obedient, because I think it's in those seasons where it feels like, God, why aren't you helping? Right? I think it's easy when we do dumb stuff where we just go like, of course, Lord, this is happening because I did something stupid. Right? But what happens when you lose your job? Not because of anything that you did. I think in those seasons, it's easy to go, God, what's the deal? Are you paying attention? Do you care about me? And I think it's in those seasons where we find ourselves compromising. Right? And that's exactly what's going to happen with this family. Right? They know that God says, hey, I want you to stay in Israel. Because in Israel is where the worship of me happens. In Israel is where we have church. In Israel is where I'm going to continue to move and work. I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to go to other countries, right? Because in other countries, they worship false gods. It's not good for you. But now all of a sudden this family's going, you know what? It doesn't really feel like God's paying attention to me. Maybe let's leave. Maybe let's go somewhere else. It doesn't really seem like he cares here. Maybe he's not really going to care if I go somewhere else. Right? It's in these seasons where it's easy to disengage from God. It's in these seasons where we're getting all these consequences of other people's behaviors where we can become really cynical, right? Where we can say like, you know what, I don't really need to engage in church anymore. Like I don't really need to join community anymore. Like I'm kind of tired of serving because it doesn't seem like things are going any better in my life, even though I'm trying, and it's really easy to kind of go on a different path right here. And this is what this family does. They make the decision to disobey God, where God says, don't leave, and they're going, we're going to leave. It doesn't seem like God's paying attention. I'm not going to do the right thing. This is that lukewarm faith. Like lukewarm faith equals lukewarm obedience. Like I don't see God doing much, so I'm going to leave. On top of that, you have another compromise. They get to Moab. They have 2 sons. Their sons need to get married. Well, guess what? There's no Israeli girls around. Right? Now, how am I supposed to marry an Israeli girl who loves God if I'm in Moab and there's no Israeli girls? And so they start making more compromises. Well, I guess I'm going to have to marry someone that God tells me not to marry. Right? I don't know if any of you have ever heard of anyone doing that. Right? Well, I don't find any good Christian guys. I don't find any good Christian girls. So, hey, like we like the same food. We have good dates together. We like the same movies. Let me just compromise here. Right? That's what we see here in this story. Again, when it seems like God's not paying attention, it's easy to make compromises. Right? Any of us who have pets recognize this often. I have a dog in my house, and this is going somewhere, some of you will think I'm a cruel dog owner, but that's okay. We only allow him to be in like 10 square feet of our house. He's allowed inside, but he's only allowed like in the very entry of our house. He's got a little bed there. It's nice and cozy for him. And he knows he's not allowed to leave anywhere else. And every time that we're home, he stays there until he thinks that we're not home and not paying attention. When we're not home and not paying attention, there's evidence that my dog likes to sneak around because he's thinking, no one's paying attention. Well, every once in a while, what I like to do is when my wife and all the kids, you know, they all get in the car and they all leave, I like to hide in my house and kind of just wait and see if my dog's going to be obedient when he thinks that no one's paying attention. And so I'll kind of sit somewhere real still, and I'll give it a good 5 minutes. And then every once in a while, I'll hear, like, on the wood floor, like, step, step, step. And then naturally, I will jump out and scare him, like, super bad, just to remind him, no, stay there. This is your place. But again, maybe that didn't work. I don't know. Did that work? I feel like it worked. I think like dogs, I think when we think that God's not paying attention is when we're just like, I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to go to Moab. I'm going to get married to someone who I should get married to because God's not really paying attention to me anyways. Like my life's not that great right now. I'm in the middle of famine. I'm in the middle of the times of the judges. And so they find themselves compromise after compromise after compromise. It's not a good thing, right? And then the story goes from bad to worse, right? Like any good Disney movie, dad dies. On top of that, both the brothers die. It's true, every Disney movie, dad's not in the picture. It's so frustrating. And here's what's beautiful. They're in the middle of this foreign place, and God's like, no, I'm coming after you. Like, I'm not done. I'm not done with Israel. I'm not done with your family. Like, I'm coming after you. I see you out here. I see you far from me. I see this nation. Like, I'm not done. And we see this starting in verse 6. Starting in verse 6, let's see how God pursues. He's going to pursue 3 different people here. He's going to pursue Naomi, who I believe has a lukewarm faith. He's going to pursue Ruth, who is far from God. And he's going to pursue Boaz, who is very close to him. So we're going to look at each 3 of those people, starting with Naomi, starting in verse 6. It says this, then she, this is Naomi, arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the fields of Moab that the Lord had visited his people and given them food. Man, I love that. That one little sentence is just like, God's not done. Right? I love that verse from Lamentations. I believe it's Jeremiah who wrote it. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies are new every morning. Right? And you get another season where God's like, no, I'm not done. I'm coming back. Like, he could have just left them. He could have just left Israel scorched earth. He could have left Naomi way out in Moab. She didn't have to hear about this, but God's like, no. Like, I want you back. You have been disobedient in your lukewarm faith. You have compromised over and over, but I want you back. Like, I have something for you. I'm not done with you. And she responds. Right? It's a hard response, though, because put yourself in her shoes, right? Do I go back? Because what does going back do? Going back admits failure, right? Going back is this process where she has to go back to her old small group, where she has to go back to her old high school friends, where she has to go back to her old neighborhood. And she left. When she left, she had a husband and 2 kids, and she has to go back and she has to say, am I willing to face the shame? Right? Because now I've got a Moabite daughter-in-law. Am I willing to face the grief all over again? Because every time I go into the grocery store, people are going to ask, like, what happened? And maybe I'd rather just move on and start a new chapter. Maybe let's just cruise on over to Egypt. Right? But going back, she has to face the music. Right? Sometimes when we're living a lukewarm life with lukewarm obedience and God calls us back, the hardest thing we have to do is make a decision of, am I going to be honest about the mistakes that I've made? Now, that's hard. It's hard to say, you know what, I did screw up. It's hard to say, I failed here. It's hard to say someone else failed me here. It's hard to relive the grief, right? It's so much easier just to be like, I just want to start fresh and new and not really talk about it and kind of start a new life. But Naomi knows, no, the God of my fathers is here. The one true God of Israel is here, and I got to go back. But in order to go back means that she's got to face the music, that she's got to face the consequences of her behavior. She's got to face the consequences of her compromises. Right? For some of us who have been living lukewarm lives, we have to ask ourselves, if God's calling me back, where do I simply need to be honest and say, you know what, here's where I have failed, right? Here's where I've been in addiction. Here's where I have really hurt people. Here's where I have been poor with money and have hurt my family. Here's where I have been abusive. Here's where, that's hard. But Naomi recognizes no, God's pursuing me. He's after me. He's got something for me, but she's got to face the music. She's got to go home. And she knows that to go home is not going to be easy. But she makes the decision, no, I'm going to go back home. She decides to go home. We see that in verse 6. Next, we see God pursuing Ruth. Ruth is probably a 15 or 16-year-old girl. She's from Moab. She doesn't know the Lord from everything that we can tell from the story. Now, we don't know everything in the story, but we can assume a few things, like any good Old Testament narrative, right? Like she didn't grow up in youth group. She didn't get to go to the mix in 4th and 5th grade. She didn't get to go to the college worship night tonight and have Chick-fil-A, right? She didn't get to go to summer camp. She didn't have parents who were like, hey, we're going to try to do Bible time. It's going to be messy, but if we can get 3 out of 7 days a week, we're doing good. She didn't go to Christian school. She didn't have any of that. And now she's invited by the only person in her life who she's still family with, who's kind of this angry, cantankerous mother-in-law, Naomi, to go back to a different place with a different language, with different food, as a complete outsider who everyone there was prejudiced against. Right, so put yourself here. You're this outsider, and she's going like, okay, am I willing to give up everything that I knew? And why would I do that? Why, as a complete outsider, would I follow this person? you have to believe that she had some sort of inkling that maybe the true God is there. And she's taking steps of faith over and over and over in her life where God's drawing her, right? She knows she doesn't belong, right? Some of us are here at church and we feel like, I don't really belong with church people, right? I didn't grow up in church. Like my parents, maybe they were like a Christmas and Easter type of family. Maybe not at all. Like some of us were like, I'm kind of embarrassed of my past. And I like sitting in church because I learned some new things, but I don't really want to be too honest with what's going on. But man, there's something here. And I know like God's doing something. And I have to believe Ruth was probably like this a little bit. Because she's going back, again, as a Moabitess, she's going back to a place where she doesn't have the history. Like she doesn't have all the connections. She's the outsider. And yet she's going, but there's something here. There's something here that I'm drawn to. Like there's a faithfulness and a commitment that she has to her mother-in-law where she's going like, I'm willing to leave everything to figure out this new life with your God, right? And we get the famous words from Ruth from this story. We see it in verse 16. It says this, starting in verse 1. It's right up there. Yeah, thank you. It says, but Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. As the story of Ruth continues, she goes back and she has to make all these little steps of obedience. She has to make all these little steps of faith where her mother-in-law says, hey, do this and meet these people and do this. And over and over, she's got to vulnerably put herself out there. And while she's taking these steps of faith, God meets her. Right? He meets her right in this really hard place. Right? At this point, she's probably 25. She'd been married perhaps 10 years. She's single now. She's widowed. But God has a new start for her. He has something that she never imagined. Right? God brings in this man in her life, Boaz. As the story goes, eventually they get married and kind of do the happily ever after thing. But God had something so sweet for her when she was finally able to say, like, okay, I will be obedient. I will take steps of faith. Even though I'm a complete outsider, I am seen and I'm loved by God, and watch God provide for me in ways that I never could have imagined. Right? And so she meets this man. And the third person we're going to look at is this man Boaz. Right? I would say that he is a man who loves the Lord. Right? The Bible describes him as a righteous man. There's a couple other different words that talk about who he is. And he's a good man, and he's living his life. Right? He's a successful businessman. And we're in the West, so we love to think of this as like a romantic love story. And maybe that's the case. Like maybe that's actually what happened. Maybe that's not at all the case. And maybe he's just faithful to what God says you're supposed to do and take care of people. Either way, here's Boaz. He's living his life. Things are going well for him. And God says, hey, I got something for you. I got something that I want you to take care of. I have someone who I want you to bring into your life. And maybe it fulfilled all his longings for wanting to be married, or maybe he was already married and this was an additional burden on the family. Like there's multiple ways to look at the story. Right? Because again, like any good Old Testament story, there's a lot of things we don't know. But what we do know is that God says, hey, you're doing strong in your faith, and I have even more for you. Right? He didn't just say, oh, go do your thing. He goes, no. Like you've been given a lot, and I have a lot more that I have for you. Right? Some of us are here, and like life's really good. Right? We come to church sometimes, and we hear the stories of like, okay, life's really hard, but God's good. And for some of us, life's great. Like for some of us, like we're here and we're here with someone we love, and it's just so cute, and we got our little presents all wrapped up, and we got the tree, and man, we just can't wait to go home and just snuggle together by the fire, and it's so cool that it's going to rain so much the next few days. I just can't wait to light that candle and just hang out, right? Just me and the Word, me and the Lord, right? Some of us feel that way. Okay, maybe not many of us in here. A lot of lukewarm people this morning. That's okay. It's okay. God has something for everyone, but some of us, we have that fire with the Lord. But the temptation is to go like, oh yeah, like God did things back then, and I'm just gonna be on cruise control. But God's like, no, I got even more for you. He has more for Boaz. He's not done with him. Right, as this story ends, it does finally end with the happily ever after. It's the coolest story. right? Naomi gets her longing, right? She gets the kid. In the very last couple verses, you can read it, the second to last paragraph, it just says like everyone in the town is just like, man, you came back and you confessed like your shortcomings and your grief and all the things that you did, but look what God's done for you. He's provided for you in incredible ways. Like you are more blessed than if you had 7 sons, right? This really cool phrase where she's just like, man, look at how God's provided. Right at the end, like Ruth gets this incredible husband, and she has an incredible relationship with the Lord, who her and Boaz together are pursuing God, and they have a kid who has a kid who has a kid who becomes the greatest king Israel's ever seen, David, right? And so God's working through all of it. Man, as we think about wrapping it up here, and I want us to go back to these 3 different people, because I do believe that most of us are in one of these 3 places. I think most of us fall into the either I'm lukewarm and I'm kind of just doing my thing and just like I kind of have to. And if that's you, I just want you to ask, like, God, what are you inviting me into today? Like you have something for me. You're pursuing me. You're not just leaving me. You have something for me. So what is it that you're asking of me? Right? How can I take a step of obedience? Right? For Naomi, she had to face the music and she had to say, okay, I need to do something different. Right? If you're here today and you identify more with Ruth as like, I'm far from God, but I'm drawn here, like something's going on, like God's got something for you, right? Like he sees you as someone who was far from him, like you didn't grow up in any of this, and that's okay. Like God has a place for you. And if you're here and you're living in a Boaz season where life's good, I think it's good to ask the question like, hey, God, what's next? Right? I was talking to Gary the other day, our young adult pastor, and he was saying what Gary always says. He goes, I don't want to go to heaven rested. He goes, I want to go to heaven dead tired. Like I'm going to do everything that I can, right? And that's a Boaz mentality. It's just like, I'm not stopping. Like we're going all in all the time until God calls us home, right? So if you're living in a Boaz season, what's next, right? What's next? Not what happened last year, not what happened yesterday, but what's God going to do tomorrow? What's God going to do next year? We're not just going to live in this season of excitement of like, ooh, look what God's doing today. But man, what does God have as we continue to move forward? So I'm going to pray, and band's going to come up. I just want to give us a little bit of time asking God, where am I and what are you calling me to? So Father God, we thank you for this story of Ruth. God, the story that we can open up and we can see how you move and work in really powerful ways for people who are all kinds of different degrees apart from you. God, for those of us who are here this morning, who truthfully were just kind of in a lukewarm season. And maybe in this lukewarmness, we're living in the consequences of other people's behaviors. And there's a temptation for us to go like, God, I don't know that you're paying attention to me, and I don't know that you care. God, if we're right in the middle of that, I'm just asking for us to pay attention to you this morning. And for us to recognize, like, no, you genuinely, deeply care, and you're doing something. So if anyone feels unseen, if anyone feels just like they're in the middle of lukewarm life, God, remind them through this Christmas season, like you came to earth for them and you have something for them. God, for us who grew up really far from you, maybe we've been far for a long time and we're back in church for whatever reason. Maybe someone invited us, maybe we're just drawn here and we don't know the lingo. Gosh, we don't even know half the story that the pastor just tried to summarize. And we're trying to figure out, what's my place? Do I belong? Do I not belong? What's okay? What's not okay? God, would you just show us what that next step of faith looks like? Would you just show us, like, hey, what does surrender to you this year look like? What is recognizing that you are God, that you came to earth as a child to pay for my sin? God, that I would confess that I would believe that, and that I would continue to take next steps of faith. God, for those of us who are doing well, for those of us who have a long heritage of strong faith, we are not done yet. God, and so whether that's a big step of obedience, whether that's a small step of faith, God, would you show us how you're moving and working? Yeah, we thank you, Lord. We pray this all in your powerful, precious name. Amen. Love you guys.